A waitress noticed what his guards didn't and saved the life of a billionaire. The restaurant was packed with the city's elite, the chandeliers casting glimmers of light over tables of crystal and silver. In the middle of the chaos, a petite waitress named Maya maneuvered gracefully between servers, her mind focused on keeping orders straight and smiles on faces. But tonight, something felt different. Across the room, a man in his mid-60s sat in a corner booth, flanked by 4 burly bodyguards. His posture screamed authority, his tailored suit whispered billions. He was the kind of man who could buy a small country without batting an eye. And yet, despite the crowd and the security detail, Maya noticed something subtle, a flicker of unease in the billionaire's eyes that no one else seemed to see. The guards were oblivious, chatting idly with each other, their eyes scanning the room for obvious threats. But Maya's gaze lingered on the waiter's entrance, the placement of plates, the subtle positioning of a fork left carelessly on the edge of a table. Something was off. She couldn't explain it, but her instincts screamed danger. Maya approached the table with her usual calm smile, holding a tray of sparkling water. "Sir, your water," she said softly, handing it to him. The billionaire's hand trembled ever so slightly as he took the glass, and for a split second, their eyes locked. He didn't know her, yet something in that moment told him she was different. And then it happened. A waiter carrying a dessert tray slipped near the table. The tray tilted, but Maya reacted instantly, stepping in, steadying it. In that single heartbeat, she noticed a small, almost imperceptible device under the table, wired toward the billionaire's chair. A bomb. Maya's heart raced, her mouth dry. She had seconds, maybe less, to act. If she froze, no one else would see it. The guards, trained and confident, were completely unaware. But she couldn't wait for them. She had to move, and the life of a billionaire now rested entirely in her hands. Maya wiped her hands on her apron, forcing herself to take slow, measured breaths. The restaurant was alive with laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of conversation. But for her, the world had narrowed to a single point, the small device she had noticed under the billionaire's table. Her heart pounded in her chest, a steady drum of adrenaline that made her palms sweat. Every instinct screamed at her, act fast. Don't hesitate. Seconds could mean the difference between life and death. She stole a glance at the guards. 4 of them surrounded the billionaire, tall and imposing in dark suits, sunglasses reflecting the glittering lights of the restaurant. One laughed at a joke a guest made, another scrolled casually through his phone, a third fiddled with his earpiece. Their confidence was palpable, their composure absolute, but they hadn't noticed the danger lurking beneath their client's chair. Maya's eyes darted back to the device. It was small, almost invisible, tucked under the edge of the table, like a predator lying in wait. Thin wires snaked from it toward the billionaire's legs. Her stomach churned. She had no training in security, no experience with bombs. But the moment she saw it, she understood the threat. She had to do something, and fast. "Excuse me, sir," she whispered, leaning closer to the billionaire. Her voice was calm, but carried an undercurrent of urgency. "Can you step aside for a moment?" The billionaire turned, his piercing blue eyes narrowing in surprise. "Step aside. For what?" Maya forced a small smile, keeping her tone light, almost casual. "It's just a precaution. Please, trust me for a second." She kept her gaze steady on him, hoping her certainty would convince him. For a moment, he hesitated. He was a man used to power, to commanding attention, to making people obey his orders. But there was something different in her, a clarity, a fearlessness, an intuition he had never encountered before. And in that instant, he nodded. One of the bodyguards noticed her movement. "Hey, what's going on here?" he barked, stepping forward. Maya didn't flinch. She gently took the billionaire's elbow, guiding him toward a safer corner of the restaurant, subtly keeping herself between him and any potential line of sight. "This way, please," she murmured. Who are you?" the billionaire asked, his voice low, trembling slightly. He had always faced danger, threats, and schemers, but this felt different. His usual calm was gone, replaced by vulnerability. "A waitress," she said softly, her tone almost maternal. "But right now, I'm the only one who sees what they don't." The guards reacted too late. Maya had already steered the billionaire a few steps away, positioning herself like a shield. Her mind raced. One device, yes, but could there be more? She couldn't take the chance. She scanned the room. In the corner, a man in a hoodie, a casual guest by appearance, watched them intently. Maya's breath caught. He wasn't a guest. He was the one who had planted the device. She whispered in the billionaire's ear, keeping her voice low and calm. "Stay behind me. I know who's doing this." The man's eyes widened as he realized he had been spotted. He started to move, but Maya held her ground, her heart pounding. Her small frame might have seemed fragile, but her resolve was unshakable. She didn't have weapons, she didn't have reinforcements, only her wits and courage. The billionaire, still visibly shaken, looked at her with disbelief. Why are you doing this?" His voice was hoarse, a mixture of fear and awe. Maya brushed a loose strand of hair from her face, letting a faint smile touch her lips. "Because I can. And because someone has to. You might be a billionaire, but you're just a man. Right now, you're vulnerable." The bodyguards finally began moving toward them, sensing the tension, but the dynamic had already shifted. Maya stood firm in front of the billionaire, her gaze locked on the suspect. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Guests froze mid-conversation. Waiters paused in the middle of carrying trays. Even the security team hesitated, unsure what danger had been revealed. For the first time in her life, Maya felt the weight of absolute responsibility. One wrong move, one hesitation, and lives could be lost. But in that heartbeat, she realized something profound. Courage wasn't about size or strength. Sometimes the smallest, unassuming person, the one everyone overlooked, could be the difference between life and death. And in that realization, Maya found clarity. She would not back down. She would protect him. Not because he was rich, not because he was powerful, but because he was human. Maya's heart raced as she guided the billionaire toward the back exit, keeping her small frame close to his side. Every instinct screamed at her to move faster, but she forced herself to stay calm, to keep the billionaire's panicked steps steady. The restaurant, once a haven of laughter and clinking glasses, now felt like a maze of danger. Behind them, the man in the hoodie moved with surprising agility. He had noticed Maya spotting him, and now pursued them with cold precision. "Stop right there," he shouted, his voice slicing through the noise. Maya didn't look back. She kept moving, every muscle taut with tension. Who is he?" the billionaire gasped, his voice trembling. "Why is this happening?" "No time to explain," Maya replied sharply, glancing over her shoulder just enough to see the pursuer gaining ground. "Just trust me. Please, keep moving." The guards were finally scrambling, their professional composure replaced by frantic coordination. They shouted orders, trying to intercept the man, but he was fast, and Maya had already anticipated his movements. She led the billionaire through a narrow corridor behind the kitchen, knocking over a stack of trays to create a barrier. The man stumbled for a fraction of a second, giving them precious seconds. Maya's mind raced. She needed a plan, and quickly. She could hear the billionaire's uneven breathing, feel his hands trembling slightly against hers. "Sir, listen to me," she said, keeping her voice calm even as her pulse pounded in her ears. "I need you to stay close and do exactly what I say. Can you do that?" He nodded, his eyes wide. I trust you," he whispered. Her stomach clenched at the vulnerability in his tone. Despite all his wealth, his power, and his influence, here he was, completely reliant on a waitress he had never met. It was a role reversal so stark it almost made her smile, but there was no time for that now. They burst into a service corridor that led to the alley behind the restaurant. Rain had started, tiny droplets hitting their faces and slickening the pavement. Maya's shoes slid slightly, but she didn't falter. "Almost there," she urged. The man in the hoodie was relentless, dodging boxes and crates in the alley, a predator closing in. "I won't let you get away," he yelled. Maya grabbed a discarded mop handle and brandished it like a weapon. "Back off," she shouted, her voice trembling with adrenaline but filled with authority. The man paused, momentarily taken aback. It wasn't the threat of the stick, it was her fearlessness, her unshakable resolve. The billionaire looked at her, astonished. You're incredible," he said, panting. "Most people would have frozen." Maya shook her head. "I don't have the luxury of freezing," she replied. "Not tonight. Not when lives are on the line." The man regained his momentum, charging forward. Maya swung the mop handle, catching him off guard and forcing him to stumble back. The billionaire took advantage of the moment, running faster and finally reaching the fire escape ladder at the side of the alley. "Climb. Quick," Maya urged. They ascended, wet metal under their hands, her arms burning, but her focus unbroken. From above, they could see the alley below, the man in the hoodie regaining his footing, his figure smaller now, but still determined. Why are you helping me?" the billionaire asked, his voice quieter now, almost vulnerable. You could walk away, so many people would. Maya looked down at him, her eyes fierce yet kind. Because no one else sees what I see. And sometimes someone has to act, even when it's terrifying. Even when it's dangerous. He swallowed hard, processing her words. For the first time in his life, someone had saved him not because of money, not because of influence, but purely because of courage and empathy. And in that moment, a strange connection formed between them, deeper than wealth or status could ever create. They reached the roof, the rain pelting their faces. Maya crouched behind an HVAC unit, dragging the billionaire down with her. Below, the man in the hoodie yelled in frustration, realizing the height he couldn't reach. Maya could see the glint of a device in his hand, another weapon, but now they had distance and cover. "Are you okay?" she asked, voice softening. I've never felt so alive and terrified at the same time," he said, meeting her gaze. You saved me." Maya's chest heaved, the adrenaline finally beginning to ebb slightly. "We're not safe yet," she said, though a faint smile crept onto her face. "But we've survived the worst of it. That's something." From above, the city lights reflected off the wet rooftops, and for a brief moment, they paused, two strangers bound by courage and fate, looking down at the chaos they had just escaped. And though the danger wasn't entirely over, Maya felt a surge of determination. She would see this through. Whatever it took, she would make sure he survived. Because sometimes the smallest actions, an observation, a quick reflex, a fearless step forward, could change the course of life. The rooftop was slick with rain, cold droplets soaking through Maya's clothes, but she barely noticed. Her focus was entirely on the billionaire beside her, his breathing ragged, eyes wide with a mix of fear and disbelief. He had faced boardroom battles, hostile takeovers, and even threats to his empire, but nothing had ever shaken him like tonight. And now, standing beside a waitress who had saved his life, he was beginning to see a side of the world he had never known. "Are you sure he's gone?" the billionaire asked, his voice low, almost fragile. Maya shook her head, keeping her eyes on the alley below. "Not completely, but he can't reach us here. We have few minutes." The billionaire exhaled, the tension in his shoulders slowly easing. He looked at her, not with the polite curiosity he reserved for employees or acquaintances, but with genuine awe. You risked everything for me. A man you don't even know. Why?" Maya studied him for a moment, her expression softening. "Because someone has to notice what everyone else misses. Because sometimes it's not about money or power. It's about doing the right thing, even when it scares you to your core." He nodded slowly, absorbing her words. For the first time, he realized that courage wasn't measured by wealth, influence, or physical strength. Courage was quiet. Courage was subtle. Courage was noticing the small things, the things everyone else overlooked, and acting, even when no one was watching. "I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who tell me what I want to hear," he admitted, voice trembling slightly. "Executives, advisors, guards, everyone tells me I'm invincible. But you reminded me I'm not. I'm just human." Maya felt a pang of empathy. And that's okay. Being human doesn't make you weak. It just means you can be saved. He studied her, a mixture of respect and wonder in his eyes. You saved me. And yet, you're still standing there, soaked and terrified, protecting me. I don't think anyone has ever looked at me the way you do, like I'm just a person, not a billionaire." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "That's exactly how I see you. Not as a target, not as a title, not as money. Just a man who needs help right now." The billionaire's chest tightened with emotion, something he hadn't felt in years, gratitude so deep it was almost painful. He reached out hesitantly, his hand hovering near hers, as if seeking a connection without intruding. "Maya, I don't even know your last name, but I owe you my life." She shook her head, brushing rain from her hair. "You don't owe me anything. Just promise me something. Promise me you'll take this as a lesson, not about fear, but about seeing people. Not just titles, not just faces, but the small details. That's how lives are saved." He swallowed hard, words failing him for the first time in decades. His life had been one of control, precision, and calculated decisions. But tonight had reminded him that even the most powerful man could be vulnerable, and sometimes salvation came from a most unexpected source. As the rain poured down, they sat on a rooftop edge, watching the city lights blur in the storm. The billionaire glanced at Maya again, his voice quiet, almost reverent. "You've changed me. I can feel it. I don't just want to survive. I want to see the world differently, to act differently. Because of you. Maya's eyes softened. Good. That's what happens when someone truly notices the unseen. It changes everything. For both of us. He let out a shaky laugh, half in disbelief, half in relief. I've controlled entire companies, negotiated billions, and yet tonight, I've learned more about courage from a waitress than I have in my entire life. Her smile widened slightly, warmth breaking through the tension. Sometimes the world forgets that heroes don't wear suits or carry weapons. Sometimes heroes just notice the things no one else does, and act. A distant siren signaled that help was finally on the way. Maya glanced at the approaching lights, her instincts telling her to stay alert. We're not out of the woods yet, but the rest is easier now. He nodded, looking at her with something deeper than gratitude, respect, admiration, and a spark of humility that had long been buried beneath layers of wealth and authority. I don't know how to thank you properly. Money, influence, none of it matters compared to this. Maya shrugged, almost embarrassed. You'll have other chances to repay kindness. Just promise me you'll be more careful. And more human. He smiled, a rare, genuine smile, one that had been softened by fear, gratitude, and newfound perspective. I promise. And, Maya, I hope one day I can be even half as brave as you. For the first time in his life, the billionaire felt transformed, not by power, not by fear, not by money, but by human courage, empathy, and the unassuming heroism of a woman who noticed what everyone else had missed. And in that quiet, rain-soaked rooftop moment, a bond formed between them, one that no title, no fortune, and no threat could ever break. The storm had begun to ease, leaving behind slick streets that reflected the neon glow of the city lights. Maya and the billionaire descended from the rooftop cautiously, sticking close to the shadows as sirens and flashing lights in the distance hinted that the authorities were finally closing in on the threat. Every step was tense, every corner could hide danger. Are you sure this way is safe? The billionaire asked, his voice quieter now, a mix of lingering fear and deep gratitude. Maya scanned the street ahead, her eyes trained for any sign of movement. It's not perfect, but it's better than staying put, she said. Her fingers grazed the edge of his sleeve, a silent reassurance. Stay close. Don't look around too much. They moved quickly, slipping through alleyways, ducking behind parked cars, and avoiding the main streets where anyone could be waiting. The billionaire, usually so confident and commanding, followed her lead with silent trust. It was a role reversal he was still struggling to process. A waitress, a young, unassuming woman, was guiding him through danger, and he felt both humbled and strangely liberated. You know, he said, his voice low, almost conversational despite the tension. I've spent decades thinking I needed to control everything, every situation, every person, every detail. And tonight, I've realized I don't. Maya shot him a brief glance, her eyebrows raised. That's a big realization for a man used to controlling entire empires. He chuckled softly, a sound that was both nervous and relieved. Yeah, and it comes courtesy of a waitress. Maya allowed herself a faint smile. Sometimes, people see what others can't. That's what saved you tonight. A sudden movement in the shadows made them both freeze. The man in the hoodie, or someone else, was nearby. Maya's pulse spiked, and she instinctively moved in front of the billionaire, her body tense. But the figure passed, disappearing down a side street, leaving them unharmed for now. Almost there, Maya whispered, guiding him toward a private side entrance of the restaurant, one that led into a secure parking garage she knew from working late shifts. Once we're inside, it's over. The billionaire's breathing steadied as they slipped into the garage, and for the first time since the ordeal began, he allowed himself to relax slightly. Maya, I don't think I've ever owed anyone anything like this, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Not money, not favors, not protection. Tonight, you saved my life and I. Shoo, Maya interrupted gently, placing a hand on his arm. You don't owe me anything. Just live your life a little differently, okay? Notice the people around you. Trust your instincts. That's all I ask. He nodded, but his eyes lingered on her, searching for words he couldn't find. I will, he said finally. But how can I ever repay you? Maya smiled softly, her wet hair clinging to her face. You don't have to. Just promise me that you'll remember tonight, the courage, the fear, the choices that mattered. That's repayment enough. He shook his head, incredulous, but a warmth spread through him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. Vulnerability, gratitude, respect, and something deeper, an admiration for someone who had risked everything without hesitation. As they walked toward his car, the billionaire paused, turning to her. Maya, tonight, you didn't just save my life. You changed me. Forever. I want you to know that. She met his gaze, unflinching. Then maybe that's the best reward I could ask for. Inside the car, he sat quietly, still processing the adrenaline, the danger, and the realization that his entire perspective on life had shifted. Maya remained beside him, her presence calm and reassuring. For the first time, he understood that no amount of wealth or power could substitute for courage, empathy, and the human connection that transcended status. Where do we go from here? He asked finally, breaking the silence. Maya thought for a moment. From here? We make it through the night. We tell the police what we saw. And then you live differently. Start noticing the small things. That's how lives are saved. He nodded slowly, taking in her words. You've taught me more tonight than I've learned in decades. More than any boardroom, any deal, any empire. You've shown me life itself. Maya's eyes softened, a faint glimmer of pride in them. And that's what happens when someone notices what everyone else misses. Sometimes the smallest person makes the biggest difference. As the city lights reflected off the wet streets, the billionaire glanced at her again, a new resolve shining in his eyes. Maya, I want you to stay in my life. Not as an employee, but as someone I trust. Someone who reminded me what courage and humanity truly mean. She smiled, a warmth breaking through the lingering tension. I think that's something I'd like too. In that moment, amidst the lingering rain and quiet aftermath of danger, the billionaire realized that life's most valuable lessons often came in the most unexpected forms. And Maya, a waitress who noticed what no one else did, had become his guide, his protector, and in a way, his teacher. The grand return wasn't just about reaching safety. It was about transformation, realization, and the unexpected connections that could change a life forever. The city had quieted slightly, but the tension lingered like a storm cloud refusing to pass. Maya and the billionaire had barely settled in his private penthouse, the adrenaline still coursing through their veins, when the first warning arrived. A subtle ping on the billionaire's phone, a security alert, flashed across the screen. Someone had accessed the building's service entrances. Maya's heart tightened. He's not done, she said calmly but firmly. That man, he's coming for you again. We have to act. The billionaire, normally cool and commanding, looked shaken. Again. But I thought we were safe. Maya shook her head, her eyes scanning the room instinctively. No one's ever truly safe when someone wants to harm you. But that doesn't mean we can't fight smart. Stay close and trust me. Within minutes, the man in the hoodie, or someone just as determined, was inside the building. Security footage showed him moving through the service elevators, heading straight for the penthouse. Maya didn't flinch. She knew panic was contagious, and she refused to let him see fear. The billionaire swallowed hard. Maya, I should call my guards. You don't need them, she said, her voice low but unwavering. You need to do exactly what I say. Follow my lead. The first sound of movement outside the penthouse door made them both freeze. The billionaire's usual confidence wavered, and for a moment, he felt the vulnerability he had felt in the restaurant all over again. But Maya's steady hand on his arm grounded him. Here's what we're going to do, she whispered. I'll distract him. You stay out of sight, and be ready to move. When I give the signal, we act together. Understood? He nodded, swallowing hard, trust written across his face. Understood. The door handle rattled. Maya's pulse raced, but she forced herself to stay calm. The intruder pushed open the door, stepping cautiously into the room. Maya stepped forward, her figure bold despite the fear clutching at her chest. You again, the man spat, his voice sharp and dangerous. I should have finished this the first time. You won't, Maya said firmly, her voice steady despite the storm of adrenaline within her. You've already failed once. You won't succeed now. The billionaire watched, awestruck, as Maya stood her ground. He realized in that instant that true courage wasn't about size or strength. It was about resolve. It was about standing firm when fear threatened to consume you. The intruder lunged suddenly, and Maya reacted instinctively, sidestepping him and using a nearby vase to block his path. Overconfidence will be your downfall, she said sharply, her mind working faster than ever. She grabbed a nearby lamp, wielding it like a baton, forcing him back. The billionaire, heart hammering, realized he had to act. He rushed forward, helping Maya corner the intruder against the wall. Together, they moved as a single unit, her agility, his strength, a combination that neither of them had anticipated. "You don't understand what you're doing," Maya said, her voice calm but edged with warning. "This ends now. You leave, or you face the consequences." The man hesitated, his resolve faltering as he realized the determination in Maya's eyes and the unexpected confidence of the billionaire beside her. In that moment, the power dynamic shifted. He was no longer the predator. They were united, strong, unyielding. Finally, with a frustrated growl, he made a choice. He backed away slowly, then turned and fled the room, leaving a trail of chaos behind him, but no longer posing a direct threat. The billionaire sank into a chair, breathing heavily, watching Maya with admiration and awe. I've never seen anyone so fearless," he said. You faced him head on. Alone." Maya shook her head, still tense, still alert. "Not alone. You were there too. Courage isn't about facing danger alone. It's about standing together when it counts." He reached out, his hand brushing hers. "Maya, I can't thank you enough. I've spent my life surrounded by people who serve me, who follow orders, who protect me. But you saw what everyone else missed. You saved me, and you didn't do it for money or recognition or power. You did it because it was right." Her eyes softened. "That's what anyone should do. Right doesn't come with a price tag." For the first time in decades, the billionaire felt a sense of humility. He realized that his wealth, his influence, his status, none of it mattered in the face of true bravery. Maya had reminded him that life was about the people who notice the unseen, who act without hesitation, who care when it counts. He smiled, a rare, genuine smile that radiated gratitude and respect. "You've changed me, Maya. Tonight, you've transformed my understanding of courage, trust, and humanity. I will never forget this." Maya allowed herself a faint smile, feeling the weight of relief wash over her. The immediate danger was over, and together they had faced it. But more importantly, they had both changed. The billionaire, humbled by fear and courage, and Maya, strengthened by her own bravery and resolve. And in that moment, the confrontation wasn't just a battle against a man, it was a revelation. A reminder that the smallest actions, the sharpest instincts, and the courage to notice what others don't could turn the tide of life itself. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the billionaire's penthouse, glinting off polished surfaces and casting long golden beams across the room. The city below had returned to its usual rhythm, unaware of the chaos that had unfolded just hours before. Yet for Maya and the billionaire, nothing could return to the way it had been. He sat across from her at the breakfast table, a quiet reverence in his expression. Coffee steamed between them, but neither seemed eager to drink. Words felt insufficient, yet both understood the weight of the moment. "You know," he said finally, his voice low but sincere, "last night changed everything for me. I've built an empire, made decisions worth billions, and yet none of it prepared me for courage like yours." Maya smiled softly, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. "It's not about empires or money. It's about noticing what others overlook and acting when it matters. That's all I did." "No," he said firmly, leaning forward. "You did more than act. You saved my life. You saved me from myself, from my arrogance, and from a threat I didn't even see coming. And you did it with grace, intelligence, and fearlessness. I've never met anyone like you." Maya's cheeks flushed. She wasn't used to praise, certainly not from someone of his stature, but she remained calm, brushing it off with a small shake of her head. "I just did what anyone should do. But I'm glad you're safe." He studied her, eyes softening with emotion. "Safe, yes, but changed. I feel human again. Vulnerable, grateful, aware. You've reminded me that life isn't about control or money. It's about people and moments and the courage to do the right thing. You've reminded me that someone noticing the unseen can save a life." Maya looked at him, her expression gentle. "Then perhaps that's all the reward I need. You understanding that, appreciating it, that's enough for me." He shook his head slowly, determination creeping into his tone. "No, Maya, that's not enough. I want to do more than thank you. I want to give you an opportunity, a life-changing one. Not because you saved me, but because I've seen your courage, your intelligence, your perspective. The world needs more people like you." Maya blinked, startled. I don't understand. What do you mean?" "I want you to work with me," he said, his gaze steady and sincere. "Not as a waitress, not as a subordinate, as a partner. Someone whose instincts, courage, and brilliance I trust. Together, we can make a difference, not just for me, but for others who can't protect themselves." Maya's heart skipped a beat. She had never imagined such an offer. Her life had been ordinary, a routine of work, small dreams, and quiet courage. Yet here was a man who had everything: power, money, influence, offering her a chance to step into a world she never dared to dream of. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice soft, almost in awe. This is more than I ever imagined." He smiled, leaning back, a warmth in his eyes. "Then say yes. Join me. Let's change the world together." Maya paused, feeling a mix of fear, excitement, and gratitude. She thought of the night before, the adrenaline, the danger, the moments of vulnerability, and realized something profound. Courage didn't always come in grand gestures, and yet it had brought her to this very moment. Slowly she nodded. "Yes," she said finally, a determined smile breaking across her face. "I'll join you. Together." The billionaire's eyes lit up, relief and pride mingling in his gaze. "Welcome aboard, Maya. You're not just my lifesaver, you're my inspiration. From this day forward, nothing will be the same." For the first time in years, he felt hope beyond his wealth, beyond his power, a hope rooted in human connection, trust, and courage. And for Maya, the experience had shown her the extraordinary impact one person could have when they noticed what others overlooked, when they acted without hesitation, and when they believed in doing the right thing. As the morning sun bathed the room in warmth, they shared a quiet moment of understanding. No words could fully capture the journey they had endured together, the fear, the adrenaline, the trust, and the bravery that had united them. But in that silence, there was a promise of partnership, of gratitude, and of a future shaped by courage, compassion, and unshakable trust. And as the city awoke below, unaware of the drama that had transpired, Maya realized that ordinary people could make extraordinary differences, and that life, with all its uncertainties and dangers, could be transformed by noticing what others missed. The billionaire reached across the table, gently taking her hand. "Thank you, Maya, for everything. You didn't just save me, you changed my life." Maya smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. "And you've changed mine too," she replied softly. In that moment, the world seemed to pause, a quiet acknowledgement of courage, human connection, and the extraordinary impact one person could have on another. The threat was gone, the danger past, and yet the transformation they had experienced together would last a lifetime. From that day on, the billionaire saw the world differently, and Maya stepped into a future she had never imagined, guided by bravery, heart, and the unshakable knowledge that noticing what others overlooked could change everything.